What if we need to break down to break through? What if we need to get lost to find our path? I read a line recently in Stealing Fire, and it says that's the paradox of selflessness. By periodically losing our minds, we stand a better chance of finding ourselves. So what if we gotta lose ourselves to find ourselves? This is a very interesting idea that's been present throughout the ages of humanity, and it relates to this core idea of ecstasy, of ecstasis, literally meaning to stand outside oneself. And there's many different ways in which we could explore and approach this non-ordinary state of consciousness, this altered state that we can peek into in some peak experiences. May it be deep adventurous travels, jumping into the unknown, taking a psychedelic experience, going on prolonged meditation retreats. All these contexts can bring about this non-ordinary state of consciousness. It can lead to a breakthrough, but also to a breakdown. It can lead to a sense of ego dissolution and ego death. It can lead to a deep confusion which emerges into a beautiful clarity. But what I've found and what we need to be aware of is that these states, they require to be approached with a sense of responsibility and maturity. Because if you go too deep, too fast, you can get lost. You might not come back. But if you go in too little and you're too scared, you might not go deep enough, right, for transformation to occur. So in this video I want to talk about this paradox and the potential for these transformations through peak states, but also I want to talk about the pitfalls that are included in this path of exploring altered states of consciousness and what's actually needed to transform altered states into altered traits. Alright, hello, my name is Vergon, this is Psychedelic Actualization. I'm a psychedelic integration coach and I help people transform altered states into altered traits, transform these non-ordinary peak experiences into lasting transformation in their life. And back when I was I think 18, I had my first Bufo Alvarez experience. It's present in it is the molecule 5-MeO DMT, which is one of the more potent psychedelic substances out there, kind of known for its potential for a non-dual experience, for this experience of oneness and ego dissolution. And I jumped into it, not really knowing what to expect, actually. I wasn't too informed at the time. But I had this experience and it showed me the profound potential of these states. I experienced what was called almost like nothingness, almost like a non-experience where I completely lost myself. There was a deep sense of selflessness and a deep sense of oneness with that dissolution of the self. And as I returned back to my body, to my self, right, I could kind of watch the reconstruction of my persona and of my ego and of reality itself happening very slowly again. And it had a profound impact on my life. Honestly, this experience I'm still kind of feeding on, as it brought about a profound sense of peace, a profound sense of okayness, and a profound sense of somewhat like a connection to the source of creation and the source of being itself. So it really showed me the potential of these transformative states. And as I got very passionate about the potential of these transformative states, I naturally explored this path further. The path of ecstasis, the path of going out and continually, temporarily breaking apart to break through, right? And continually going into these expanded states where I could lose myself to, in a sense, find myself with this paradox. But what I discovered over the years, in particular with one experience that happened about 7-8 years later, is that there is a potential pitfall on this path. There are potential dangers on this path. As I was journeying back into the 5-MeO DMT space, longing to return to this specific place of this first experience, I went in a bit too far. Almost like, right, I had kind of like 3 back-to-back 5-MeO DMT experiences on another substance. That's a story for another video. And through that breakthrough, I was breaking down. I was finding myself in what is known as a dark night of the soul, a psychospiritual crisis or a spiritual emergency where I was not able to function in daily life anymore, as I deconstructed my sense of self so completely that it couldn't fully return back to baseline. And that was one of the most challenging phases of my life. That was one of the most amount of suffering that I've experienced in my life. But even that breakdown led to a certain sense of a breakthrough as I was growing spiritually and I was maturing in my approach to these experiences. So what these stories of mine are showing us is that there's an immense potential, and you can basically break down, right, and get into this dissolution to then break through and come out on the other end more happy, more fulfilled, more peaceful, more wise. But you can as well break through and then break down, and from that breakdown, break through again. So it's this cycle, it's these waves of breaking down and breaking through. It's these waves of dissolution and merging into the one while coming back and reconstructing our sense of self in the relative. It's these phases of getting lost and finding our path again. And this is such an interesting journey, and these journeys hold such great value. But what we gotta be aware of is the pitfalls that people experience on these pathways, on exploring these altered states. And I want to touch on like 2 or 3 of them right here. One is, again, the paradox of selflessness. As some people merge into this sense of selflessness, the experience can seem and feel so profound that you might think that no human being has ever experienced this kind of depth before. And so you think you're special. And the message here that is communicated in Stealing Fire as well is it's not about you. Right? Selflessness is not about you, but paradoxically an experience of selflessness can be reinforced and lead to a sense of ego inflation. It can lead to a sense of thinking we're superior, thinking that you're above somebody. You might, experience an experience where you feel like the consciousness of Christ or the consciousness of Krishna. But that does not mean that now you are Jesus Christ, right? This is known as the Messiah complex, or I think it was also called the Jerusalem syndrome or something along those lines. So it's good to remember that it's not about you, right? It's not about you. It's not about this home, what they call it in the Sikh tradition, this I, me. But it's an interesting paradox as the movement is happening towards the merging of the one, but in an integrated sense in the world, to function, we have constructed a sense of self, right? And so to reconstruct this sense of self in a mature way, in a way where these altered states can propel us on the stages of development, is a key part. Right? And the way to do that is to build a support structure, to keep yourself in check, to not be lost in this journey of breakdown and breakthrough, of altered state after altered state. Because without a support structure, without a reflection back from a coach, a community, a friend, it's hard to find your way back. It's hard to reconstruct. It's hard to kind of like realign your values and reconstruct the self that was deconstructed in the experience itself. And the second aspect and the second pitfall here is it's dangerous to go too deep, right? It's a funny play and a funny dance of balance with the unknown. As I mentioned, that we are drawn to explore what's out there, but we don't know if we're ready to face that, what's on the other side, and where that boundary is, where our edge is, where it's just too much. And let me tell you, there is a place of too much, because in the psychedelic community at times there is this phrase or this myth that is saying that the medicine is giving you exactly what you need at the time. And it might be true on a certain domain, on the absolute domain, that everything that occurs is meant to be. And yet at the same time there are profound breakdowns where the person is not recovering, where it's a deep disruption of their life with a prolonged sense of suffering that does not lead to an immediate breakthrough, which might not lead to a breakthrough ever in their life. So this is something to be aware of, where we're tipping our toes into the water and sometimes we have the urge to jump straight in. But if we dive too deep, there's no guarantee that we're going to be coming back. But if we dive in too little, we feel like there's more to explore, right? So that's the dance that we got to be feeling into, where we really explore these altered states in a mature and responsible way. We work ourselves forward carefully, and sometimes we burn ourselves, but because we are approaching it from a mature and responsible place, we are giving care to the preparation. We are giving care to the safety measures. We do have a facilitator present in a psychedelic experience. We go with a trained team when we go free diving, right? It's kind of like with these altered states, it's a dance of risk and reward, because all of these hold certain risks, and we do have to be courageous and take a certain risk to dive in. But at the same time, taking too much risk might lead to a potential breakdown that we aren't able to recover from. So being really aware, and again, the support structure and the reflection and the mentoring of a coach, of a partner, of a community is a key part of the environmental journey that allows us to explore these states of consciousness consciously. And the third one is an interesting one as well, where as we dive into ecstasy, as we dive into this sense of timelessness as well, as we are merging with this experience, as we return back to linear time from this deep now, we might think that now is all there is, and we might wish for our manifestation to occur immediately. Yet, when we do not account for the time delay as it is present in our ordinary state of consciousness, we might feel a bit disappointed. We might feel a bit confused of why isn't the integration happening now? As integration is a continuous process of integrating these altered states into altered traits, of continually developing ourselves and moving through the stages of development, right? As Ken Wilber, I think, said, it's not just about the states of consciousness, but it's about transforming these states of consciousness into stages of development, altered states into altered traits. And that is a hard and arduous journey that is going to be happening over a prolonged period of time. It's not fancy, it's not instant manifestation. There might be a transformation happening, but the slow integration of that is happening over time. And again, a support structure and a network where you continually are being held accountable and you can check back in with your progress and yourself and your balance is key in order to integrate that. Alright, so these were a couple of the pitfalls of these altered states, but as we have seen, the altered states are so profound, so wonderful. They hold such deep potential for transformation, for for profound insight. But if we're not mature, if we're not responsible, if we're not careful, we can fall into certain traps. We can go in too deep, too fast. We can get a bit attached to the superiority of the uniqueness of the experience, or we might expect for the transformation to be immediately translated into daily life. Right? So it's a delicate balancing act of exploring these altered states and also of transforming these altered states into altered traits. If you would like support with that, I do offer one-on-one support, one-on-one integration coaching. There's a link in the video description. And if you want to go deeper into the 4 hidden beliefs that hold people back from actually integrating their altered state experiences, there's a masterclass that is completely for free. If you click the first link in the video description, it'll take you there. So, much love, thanks so much for watching, and yeah, be safe out there, exploring these altered states, and keep on developing this cognitive flexibility that allows you to hold the paradox of this work, as this work is really deeply immersed in paradox. And that's not a bug, it's a feature. Alright, much love.